And here we are back on Talkback Now, taking a major turn and talking about, if you will, a generational problem.
Yeah, it's also graduation week, and
Yes.
I saw this article in the Wall Street Journal the other day. The title of the article, which I've posted on our Facebook page, is "Dear Class of 2015, You're in Trouble." And I started reading the article, and I thought to myself, man, who wrote this? And I looked at the name on the article, and it happened to be someone we've had as a guest on Talkback. So I reached out to my friend over at the Manhattan Institute, and we were able to get our special guest on today, Diana Furchtgott-Roth. Now, if you don't remember, Diana was former chief economist for the U.S. Department of Labor. She's the director of Economics 21, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research as well. She also, as you would probably guess from the Wall Street Journal article, a regular writer for major journals all across the United States. So welcome to the show, Diana. Tell us a little bit about the article, which I understand is also part of a book that you've got it going on called Disinherited, How Washington is Betraying America's Young.
Yes, well, the book came out this week, and it makes a great graduation present. It's called Disinherited, How Washington is Betraying America's Young. And it's about how we disadvantage young people in America, how we favor old people over young people, how we start out by giving them a worse education, then we don't let them get into the workforce, even though they're graduating with thousands of dollars in debt. And finally, we expect them to pay for our health care with higher health care premiums, and then we expect them to pay off the deficit in the national debt. Things need to change for young people. It's just not fair.
This struck me just the other day, and it's not associated with a big governmental policy, but we were talking with a lady from the University of Montana here locally, and they said, yeah, if you're 65 and older, tuition is free for you to come to the University of Montana. And I looked at Peter, who's well past 65. I was 95.
I was salivating. I thought, what a great idea.
And I'm sitting here thinking, man, you know how much money I'm spending to get my wife through nurse practitioner school right now? And, my 3 kids, it's tough out there. There's almost no jobs. And I assume this is something the rest of the country's feeling for my generation. I was born in 1981, but you know the statistics. Can you give us some hard data when it comes to this, what you're calling Generation Y, or what people have called Generation Y? How are they most disadvantaged in the current economy?
Well, the unemployment rate for young people is about 10%, which is over twice the unemployment rate for those 25 years and older, which is about 4.5%. The teen unemployment rate is 17%, and the rate for African American teens is about 28%. So young people have it a lot worse. Even though the unemployment rates are going down, they're still double the rates for older people.
Now, when we're talking about unemployment rate, that's calculating people that either are looking for work or have work, but it's not even counting, if I'm not mistaken, it's not counting those that have given up looking for
the 93 million.
That's right. It's not counting people who have dropped out.
Now,
yes.
Now, let me ask you this: and someone asked us this the other day. In that 93 million who are no longer looking for work, does that include folks who are on Social Security who are already retired?
Let's see, the people who are not looking for work. Well, when you look at the labor force participation rates,
right?
Yes, it does include people who are on Social Security, but on the other hand, the labor force participation rate for people 65 and over and 55 and over is higher than it's ever been. So you find labor force participation is actually rising in these older groups. What's troubling is it's going down in the 25 to 55 group and the 20 to 24-year group. So the percent of teens and young people employed or looking for work is the lowest since the government began keeping records in 1948 at 55%.
Oh.
But the rate for 55 and over is higher than it's ever been.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the things in the title of the piece. Now, I understand authors aren't always responsible for their titles as they might appear in newspapers and stuff, but the subtitle...
We fought very hard for our title.
Oh, did you?
We can take full responsibility.
Okay, good. So the subtitle is Facing Unemployment, Loan Debt expensive retiree payouts, and more problems, young people need a lobby. So tell us about what kind of lobby you envision for young people.
The problem is that there's an American Association of Retired Persons that spends millions of dollars on lobbying, but there's no American Association of Young Persons. So politicians make decisions that disadvantage younger people and help older people, and younger people aren't getting together to provide any kind of counterbalance. And when you meet someone, you say, is it fair that you're paying 15% of your paycheck for Social Security and Medicare, programs that aren't going to be there when you retire? And they say, no, it's not fair. And I'm saying 15% because it's 7.5% from the employer and 7.5% from the employee. And then when you say, is it fair that your health insurance premiums are higher so that older people's health insurance premiums can be lower because Obamacare has a 3-to-1 band? And they say, no, that's not fair. You say, is it fair that occupational licensing rules prevent someone from opening a company as an interior designer? They say no. So if you go to them down the issues, issue by issue, they agree with us. But they're not getting together to make this clear to the politicians.
Tell you what, but Diana, we're up against a break, and we have a caller on the line, Catherine, who wants to visit with you as well. I'm going to go into my corner and feel really guilty now.
Bad, Peter.
No,
Bad.
it's all my fault. All right, so we're going to come right back with more of Talk Back. We do have one more line open. Fascinating conversation. And do you agree? Do you think that that the older are stealing their future from the young? Or is it something that we worked for and earned? So we're going to come right back and talk back and talk more about it. Hey, we're back on Talk Back. 721-1290 is the number. 1-800-568-5309. That's John King. I'm Peter Christian. Diana Furchtgott-Roth is joining us, and she has written a book that is finally put down on paper what a lot of people have been talking about for the last 10 or 15 years. Disinherited, how Washington is betraying America's young.
And apparently a lot of people want to talk about it because our phone lines are full.
Yes, they are. Let's go get right to the phones, and I'll push.
Immediate rock star award to Diana.
Here we go. All right, Catherine, you're on with Diana. Go ahead.
Good morning, Diana. Did you break out the professional training categories or the majors that younger people are graduating in and the employment statistic differentials for each major? I.e., if the unemployment rate is 10% for the, 16 to 24?
No, 20 to 24.
I'm sorry, 16 to 24?
20 to 24.
Oh, 20 to 24, okay. What percentage of unemployment is there for majors such as engineering versus majors such as history? Is there any way of knowing that?
Definitely. There are majors for different graduates, and engineering has the lowest unemployment rate. If you major in engineer or any of the STEM groups such as physics, chemistry, engineering, computer science, math, then you're very unlikely to be unemployed. So I think that's another message we need to give graduates, that high school graduates, if they pick a major in the STEM category, they're much more likely to be employed afterwards.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Now, let me ask you this. We live in Missoula, Montana, Diana, which is home of the, we live in Missoula, which is the home of the University of Montana, which is primarily a liberal arts facility, and specializing in education, psychology, things like that. There's an excellent business school. But the school down on the other part of the state, MSU, has they're very well known for engineering, agriculture, things like that. Their enrollment is up. Our enrollment is down. Do you see that as a trend that's going to continue?
I think more and more people, when they see the amount that they have to borrow for an education, are going to go into fields where they can have a certain job afterwards. And whether it's engineering schools or other kind of schools, or they're just going to pick their major more carefully. I think they're going to make an effort to do that.
I wanted to bring up something you mentioned right before we went to the break, and it was one of the pieces in your Wall Street Journal article that stuck out to me the most. Just the idea that businesses become established and then they work with legislatures to make sure that they retain that position. one of the things that these businesses do will be to have certain criteria or standards that you have to go through, extra hoops that a new entrant into that particular field might have to go through in order to do that job. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was your little dissertation on being an interior decorator. So I was hoping you could kind of give us a little bit of that viewpoint for the listening audience.
Yes, well, different states put occupational licensing on different professions, and these rules really work to protect people who are already in these businesses. So, for example, in Alabama, California, Connecticut, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, or Rhode Island, you need a license to start a tree trimming business, even though in the other states you don't find that their trees are trimmed any worse. You go to Virginia and you don't see the trees are trimmed worse than in Maryland, even though you need the license in Maryland. This is something states use to protect existing people in the businesses. One of the things that most puzzled us was these interior designer occupational licenses, because no one has ever died from a mismatched couch and a rug. And if someone isn't a good interior designer, then they just won't get hired.
Right.
And yet, so it doesn't seem worth going to the trouble of making them have a license, because this is a profession that can be studied very easily. You don't need capital. It needs someone with good vision, good skills, and it's perfect for a recent graduate.
And I love your cost comparison, the cost of getting that interior decorator's license compared to other fields.
Exactly. It takes about 6 years to get an interior designer license.
What?
But becoming an emergency medical technician, you need an average of 33 days training and pass 2 exams.
Right. My wife can be a nurse practitioner in a little over 6 years. So, I mean, there's a big... And I used to work in the furniture business, and when we had, after 2009 hit, and we had to choose people to fire, I'm sorry, but interior decorators were the first to go, and our salespeople instantly became interior decorators.
Exactly. All right. Taylor, let's get Emmett on the line. Emmett, you are on with Diana Furchtgott-Roth. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'd like to make a few observations. I just don't believe that the old people are stealing from the young. I do believe that Social Security and Medicare is something you pay into, something you earn, and the people who are on, who are retired, elderly, 65 on Social Security and Medicare, they paid into that in the system all those years. As far as the young not being able to find jobs, that's the Obama economy. That's laid at the foot of Barack Hussein Obama. It's not George Bush. There's a lot. So it isn't just an institutionalized government thing. It's Obama. And quite frankly, I agree with the person. It's our guest. I mean, the mountains of college debt is just terrible. I think we should get back to the days. One solution is to create jobs for people who are simply out of high school that can have a high school diploma and get a job like it used to be, rather than having to go to college. So that's my comment,
Thanks for the call, Emmett. So, Diana, did you want to comment on what Emmett said?
Yes, I think we used the example, actually, of Jarrett Meyer, who's my co-author, his grandfather, August, who has paid in all these years to Social Security. But he is, in fact, getting out more than he's paying in. But young people today, when they pay in, they're not going to get out what they pay in as the program is currently structured. That's why we need to reframe the program. And it's not as though older people are stealing. We're not saying they're stealing. We just need to restructure the programs so that they will be there when people like Jared are paying into them. And it's relatively simple to do that for Social Security. You can raise the retirement age gradually, and you can index the benefits for the price level in the economy rather than the wage level in the economy. So benefits still go up, but they go up with the price level instead of the wage level. These are fixes that politicians haven't wanted to touch, even though they're relatively minor, because they're afraid of the AARP lobby. They don't even want to talk about any fixes. George W. Bush campaigned on trying to change Social Security. His idea was having a 2 or 3 percentage point amount that you would take and put in a private account. But he didn't get very far with it. Congress would not go along.
Well, he was vilified. Yeah, immediately.
He was vilified. Politicians who try and take on the problem are vilified.
Yeah.
And we want to say that this is necessary for the young of America.
Well, that's the reason Walter Mondale lost the election in such a huge landslide. He dared to talk about Social Security. We're up against a break, Diana, so hang on. Patty, we're going to get you on. Go ahead, John.
I want, when we get back from the break, I think Diana said something kind of alarming, that those systems won't be there for our youth when they get older. And I want you to make that case for us after the break.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. We do have one line open. 721-1290 is the number, and this is Talkback. And wow, dear class of 2015, you are in trouble. Joining us, Diana Furchtgott-Roth at the Manhattan Institute. Now, you asked a question.
Yeah, I thought that Diana said something kind of alarming. A lot of people would say it was fear-mongering. When she said that those institutions, I think she was specifically talking about Social Security and Medicare, won't be there for this generation when they get older. And I was hoping that you might be able to make that case a little better for us.
Well, now Social Security benefits are paid to 58 million people, which is over 1,000 times more than when the program was set up in 1937. And the program costs $808 billion. About 40,000 times more than what it cost when it was set up, adjusted for inflation. So if trends continue, the combined employer-employee payroll tax would have to rise from 15% to 32% in 2050 just to cover Medicare and Social Security.
Wow.
So these things cannot continue. We need to fix the program.
They're unsustainable then.
It's unsustainable, and this is just Medicare and Social Security. Also, states are $5 trillion in debt from their own unfunded pension liabilities. So to cover the cost of those unfunded pension liabilities, each person in the United States would have to pay about $15,000. So that's something else that needs to be fixed, not just Social Security and Medicare, but these other state pension plans.
No, it's political season, so a lot of people will, you bring up this topic, we need to fix Social Security or Medicare, and I think that using some deft maneuvering, the conversation will quickly get dodged to or shunted to one topic of the other. One of them, I think if you talk to conservatives about it, they'll say, oh, we need more jobs, we need to do something about jobs, and if you talk to liberals about it, they'll say, yeah, we need to increase the minimum wage. That's what we need to do to get young people on their feet. If you were in a conversation with a politician and that's what happened, and that's the way the conversation went, I know this is how it goes because I do this all the time. And it usually always ends this way. They talk about jobs in some act that they have or bill that they have that will give more jobs. Or they talk about how we really need to take money away from the top 1% and give it to the bottom. And one of the best ways to do that would be through something like the minimum wage. What would your response be?
Well, I would say that raising the minimum wage keeps teens and low-skilled workers out of the labor market. There's 97% of working Americans make more than minimum wage. Only 3% of working Americans make minimum wage, but they use it as a stepping stone to a higher-paying job. And if they didn't have that stepping stone, they wouldn't be able to get into the job market at all. So we were just mentioning Seattle. Seattle with its $15 an hour minimum wage, that's very difficult for young people, unskilled people, to get into the job market. And I was just in Seattle, and I asked a taxi driver what he thought about the $15 minimum wage. He said, well, it's fine here because we have Amazon and Microsoft. And I said, yes, but what about teenagers? And he said, well, that's right, they have a tough time. They're going to have to move someplace else if they want a summer job. So I would say it's it's well-intended for people to want to raise the minimum wage. Everybody wants people to be better off, but employers are just going to hire the kind of people who have the skills for their particular wage. So if they have to pay $15 an hour, they'll hire somebody who's worth $15 an hour, and that person who wants a job as a high school job in the summer, they're not going to be hired for that.
On the Republican side, let's just assume someone passes the magical bill that makes jobs happen, and youth unemployment is down to 4.5%. And if that were the scenario, would the system still be so fatally flawed or fundamentally flawed that even with employment at a decent, healthy level, there would still be problems with the system?
Well, even if the unemployment rate were to go to 4 or 5%, we still have the phenomenon that people are living longer and longer, which is great. We want to be living longer and healthier. So it means that Social Security and Medicare have to pay for about 20 or 25 years of people's lives rather than 2 as it was set up. Because when it was set up, average life expectancy was about 67 years, so people were on Social Security for 2 years. So this is something we do need to fix because the program is getting more and more expensive. We need to gradually raise the retirement age, or we need to increase the taxes, which I think no one wants to do. Or we need to slightly lower the contributions, or maybe means test the contributions.
All right. Tell you what, Diana, we're up against a break. We have Patty and Dave who both want to visit with you. Fascinating conversation. I wish we had a lot more time. We only have about 28 minutes to continue our conversation with Diana Furchtgott-Roth. She has written a book called Disinherited: How Washington is Betraying America's Young. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Talk Back, and it's Thursday. Thanks so much for joining us. It's a beautiful day in western Montana. Just a few clouds, but hey, it's spring. And joining us on the phone, Diana Furchtgott-Roth from the Manhattan Institute, written a book called Disinherited: How Washington is Betraying America's Young. Now, we have a whole bunch of folks that want to visit with you, so let's get Patty on the line. Patty, you're on with Diana. Go ahead.
Well, hi, Diana, and I totally agree with you. But I've seen the patterns that's ruined our country. One was the Social Security system was solvent until the government dipped their hands in and left IOUs.
IOUs, yeah.
IOUs. And instead of putting the money back, they never do. Just like the lottery money was supposed to go to the teachers' retirement fund. It went in the general fund. And it's just been a big free-for-all. I mean, all these wars that we've been
It was just too tempting.
in.
It was just too tempting, Patty. That money was just sitting there.
Just sitting there, right?
Yeah,
and it's a great program that we need in this country. And it works the way it works if they would stay out of it.
Well, let me ask you this, Patty, real quick. You said it works the way it works if they would just stay out of it. One of the things that's come up, one of the things that's come up in the past 30, 40, 50 years has been the increase in lifespan. More and more older, as Peter can attest, more and more older individuals are staying at work longer. They are filling up job slots that would typically in the past have been filled by younger workers, making it harder for younger workers to move up the corporate ladder or even the local ladder. My question for you is this. Should we push back the age at which people start to receive Social Security since people are living longer?
No, but if they're working, we should cut back on their Social Security. There's got to be something there. I mean, if they're taking jobs, then you're right. And women are in the workforce, which is taking away. It used to be a man would support the family, and the woman would stay home and take care of the children. And,
what children?
But at the same time, it seems almost unfair. I mean, to punish Peter for being at the top of his game, I mean, really, he's one of the best voices in radio that you'll ever hear. To punish him by delaying his Social Security simply because he's working harder than other people.
No, not
seems
delay
unfair.
it, but if he's working, and I agree. But I mean, they are taking jobs, but that isn't really the problem. The real problem is the government getting involved in all these countries, in all these wars. They've spent more on one airplane than all the social programs for 1 year.
I don't think so.
They're out blowing
I don't
money
think so.
like crazy. Well, they
All right.
did.
All right. Well, Patty, we got to run. Get another call on. Thanks for your call, Dave. You're on Talkback with Diana. Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say that just having an engineering degree doesn't guarantee you a good-paying job.
It doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, I know people who have engineering degrees that are making $9 an hour. But if we had wage inflation, that would help in Social Security a little bit. Because wage inflation would mean more money into the Social Security fund, but we're actually having reverse, whereby new hirees working side by side with old hirees are getting less money, and that's part of the problem. If we really had wage inflation, it would be different, but without it, because of foreign competition, we're not going to get wage inflation in this country.
Okay, let's let Diana address that. Go ahead, Diana. What do you think about Dave's idea?
I think we certainly need wage growth, and we need wage growth from increased productivity. We can get increased productivity by having the government pull back on its borrowing and spending, leaving more to the private sector, having more immigrants who come and start companies. Most of the companies founded in Silicon Valley have a foreign-born person who is a founder. So we certainly need wage growth. I'm not sure we need inflation of any kind. We don't need price inflation or wage inflation because it takes away people's savings.
Right. Let's get Alan on the line. Alan, you're on with Diana. Go ahead.
Yeah, Diana, good morning.
Good morning.
You keep saying that it needs fixed. I guess my question, there's two of them. How do we fix it, and can we fix it, and if we fix it, will it be recognizable?
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Yeah. I think that it certainly can be fixed with politicians who have enough gumption to step forward and say there is a problem. There is a problem, and we need to solve it. We need someone with leadership who goes to Congress and who says this is not sustainable for our young people, and we need to make changes. And politicians like that do exist. We just need to elect one of them, preferably for president, with a Republican Congress so we can make some changes. But yes, you're absolutely right. It takes legislation passed by Congress to make the changes that we need.
Let's get one more call before we have to take another break. And this is Candy. Candy, you're on with Diana. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Diana. I want to kind of take a left-hand turn here and
we got about a minute and a half. Go ahead.
Pose a situation that I feel is affecting things, and that is out of wedlock births. It seems like the young people are using Medicaid and welfare and to start their families, and it's kind of known that without a permanent family, that you don't excel in things when you're having babies, and before you should be having babies. And then I just want to know, how does that figure in on the low-income wages, the minimum wage workers and stuff like that, when they are starting families using Medicaid as to have their babies, and that has to have an effect long term with the welfare rates and stuff like that. And how does that affect education and stuff? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your call. We're going to ask Diana to answer that question when we come back from the break. You want to try to get the contest?
Here's what we're going to do. Our phone lines are just too ravenous today for me to try to give away free coffee on the phone line bank. However, I'm still going to give away some free coffee.
All right.
All you have to do is go to our Facebook page. The first person to type in Rocket Coffee on today's Facebook headline. This is the one with the graduation story and Diana Furchtgott-Roth's name at the top. If you go in there, type in Rocket Coffee, you get free Rocket Coffee from the Rocket Coffee stand in the Garden City Garden Supply. Also, your free slab of toast and your choice of spread. So have at it, typists.
We're coming right back. Harry, we'll get your call on. We have one line open at 721-1290. Talk back, rolling right along. Diana Furchtgott-Roth is our guest from the Manhattan Institute, and we're talking about her book called Disinherited: How Washington is Betraying America's Young. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
As Diana mentioned during the break, a great gift for grads, but also a great gift for grads to give to their parents.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you usually get a school library discount or school bookstore discount while you're there. So maybe you can have them order that.
Perhaps so. Let's get back to the phones.
Right, and it's only $17.99 on Amazon.com. So
cool. Well, that's affordable.
Won't break the bank.
All right, Harry, you're on with Diana. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning. There is ways, like say means testing is probably the best way to do it. Also, you say, well, nobody wants to raise taxes, but they can. That just raise the because Social Security is only taken out of a certain level of the money. Just bump that up a little bit. Like John said, well, it wouldn't be fair if people were working. Like if Peter goes on working and doesn't accept or doesn't get his Social Security. Well, and that's just being selfish. If you say, well, I'm working, but I want my money too. That's you can give a little bit. If you say, raising the retirement age. Well, that sounds good, fine and good if you sit behind a microphone or write books, but not every job is that easy. I know a lot of jobs that, people that are 60s and 70s old ain't going to be able to do.
Yeah, I hear you.
Peter, your job is so easy. All you have to do is push buttons.
And I promise not to be offended by that.
Hey, Harry, Harry, I do.
There is some job that, older people, and they get sicker, you can't do when you're, 60, 70-year-old.
Yeah, it's hard to buck bales when you're 70 years old.
Physical labor is tough. But, Harry, I did have a question for you.
Yeah.
A lot of people will respond to you when you say means testing and not everyone gets it. Well, that's just not the promise that Social Security was supposed to be. You got to realize people like Peter have been paying into Social Security their whole lives.
Well, just call it insurance. And if you need it, it's there. And if you have the money, you don't need it. Don't be selfish. Give a little bit out to everybody else. Don't be.
Gee, Peter. Don't be so selfish.
I am a selfish
pig.
And I freely admit it. Thanks for the call. All right, Tyler, you're on Talkback. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No one really intended the program to be paying for people for 20, 22 years. So I think with the expansion in people's life expectancies, which is very positive, we should begin to gradually raise the retirement age. And I'm not saying for people who are necessarily 55 and over, but we could start with people who are coming into the system. We could start with people 50 and over. We could give people a choice. If you delay your retirement, then you get a slightly higher amount later on. We already do some of this with a higher amount if you retire at 70 rather than retiring at 65.
Which is what I plan to do, God willing. All right, Tyler, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
I'm still baffled by Harry's comment. To have a real hard time look an elderly person in the eye. You're so selfish, Peter.
I am.
Well, I don't think that Peter's the one being selfish, but I do think that the way that people talk about Social Security is they always talk about it as something that we owe to the older generation so that they can go on surviving after work. But the way that it was sold to the original generations was this is something that you are investing in for the future. So the way that it's talked about and the way that it was supposed to be are very, very different. And it's really hard for a young generation to be told, you don't get money when you get older. However, Bill Gates gets his Social Security check.
Now, Diana, please allow, and Tyler, thanks for your call, man. Listen, Diana, please clarify this for me, all right? Let's say that I've made a bucket load of money and I can retire whenever I want, and yet still when I turn 65, I will be able to collect Social Security. Now, I understand that depending upon your income, you will be taxed on that Social Security, right?
Right. Yes. Depending on your income.
Okay. All right. So even if you're collecting your Social Security, you are going to be contributing back into the system.
Right. You do continue paying Social Security benefits on your income. That you earn.
Go ahead.
Oh, we have a couple Facebook comments I want to get through.
All right, let's do it 1 minute, and then we'll take a break.
Okay, first one's from Kitty. She says, talking about the young not getting Social Security, even though they will pay for it. What about the middle-aged people who have paid for 20-plus years, and there will be nothing for us also? Please talk about the middle-aged problems between those for us and the young and those that are older. So I guess hypothetically we're setting up here. When do you think that Social Security will kind of climax or get into big trouble?
Well, it's scheduled to go bankrupt around in 2050 or so. So it's going to be around for a long time longer. But it's going to be more and more costly, and the sooner we start making fixes, the easier it is going to be.
We have to start.
Middle-aged people probably are. They're probably going to be taken care of, and what's probably going to happen, knowing our country, is that money will be put in from general revenues, and it'll get more and more expensive.
Yeah.
The problem is that more funds are going to be going to support older people. That means there's less funds for younger people, less funds for things like education and other kinds of things.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that we need to change.
Okay, we're up against a break, so transitioning, I think, is part of what we need to do between our course corrections, if you will. We're going to take a quick break. Bill and Craig both want to visit with Diana, who has become a genuine rock star at our show today. So we're going to come back after this 1 minute timeout. Okay, we're back on Talkback, and we have another Facebook comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, this one's from Jim. He says, a few years ago, Social Security sent me an update on my, quote, account, end quote. It mentioned the hype and he has that in quotes as well, about Social Security not being there for me, and then reassured me that I will still be able to get about 78 cents on every dollar that I pay in. I am really, it really ticks me off that that I am forced to make an investment that is guaranteed to lose 25%.
Go ahead, Diana.
That's why President George W. Bush suggested allowing people to take 3 percentage points of their Social Security contribution and put it into a private account where it would earn money with treasury bonds or the stock market, whatever people picked. Then they would have an amount, a nest egg, that they could then pass on to their heirs or use whatever they preferred to do. And this would have particular benefits for African Americans who have, on average, lower life expectancies and get less out of the system as it is right now. In many ways, this system is very regressive. You have people paying into it, and then when they die at 67, 68, they don't get as much out as other people.
Okay.
So I think that these ideas are worth discussing, worth pursuing.
Yeah, good luck. Let's get Bill on the line. Bill, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Morning. I'll make this real quick. It kills me that people are telling me that I have to work longer or give up more of my money or my earnings, that I work off my sweat and my back, and that I might not be even guaranteed to ever see. And telling us that we might have to work longer as we get older is ridiculous. The government needs to get out of our lives, especially the Social Security. Probably not right away, but for the younger generations, they're not going to have anything because the government spends everything they get into the Social Security because it's not in a lockbox like they've always said, and they've spent it. But it's the government ruling and dictating our lives to when we can retire, how much we can get of our own money back, and disperse it, and we don't get it back when we die. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is totally dictatorship on our lives,
all right,
our working lives.
Appreciate that call. Now, one quick a note, Diana. At what point do you think that the young people in this country are simply going to revolt and say, I'm not going to pay this? It's not fair. We're not going to be seeing anything, so you guys can go pound sand. I'm just not going to pay it.
It's very difficult not to pay the taxes that are just taken out of your paycheck automatically.
Right.
I think young people need to get together and revolt and elect a new set of politicians who are going to do something to change the system so that they don't have to do the civil disobedience.
Okay, let's get Craig on the line then. Craig, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
From this, I have Social Security, but I'll tell you what, it's appalling that they charge these young people. It's just another example of what we're leaving these poor suckers with. I hope they do revolt. I'll help them burn a building.
Poor suckers.
Thanks.
We'll see you outside at the next Occupy Wall Street rally, Craig.
So we have 3 minutes. So Diana, in the next 3 minutes, help us with some solutions. What can we, as a listening audience in Missoula, Montana, do?
I think that it's important to write to your politicians and say that you want change. Look out for politicians who want to change the system and elect them into office. And America needs to evaluate its countless regulations, laws, and policies. And people need to look at these through the prism of how they affect young people, how they allow young people to be educated, how they allow young people to work. We've talked a lot about the benefits such as Social Security. We've talked less about how unqualified teachers are kept on so that kids get a worse education. We haven't talked as much about how to get rid of barriers to working, such as occupational licensing, lowering the minimum wage, allowing unpaid internships in for-profit companies. Right now, the government allows unpaid internships in the White House, in Congress, in community action groups, but not in any kind of companies or banks or manufacturing facilities. That should change too. So we need to make it easier for people to get a good education, easier for the young to get into the workforce, so at least they're not handicapped in that way as they start out.
Yeah, no, I think one of our callers earlier said it was all Obama's fault, but really, a lot of this stuff is driven at the state level, right?
Yes, a lot is at the state level, and a lot has been building up in terms of the entitlement before President Obama was elected. Successive presidents and politicians, brave ones, have tried to change it without success. but it doesn't mean that it cannot be changed.
You know, Diana, I think it's one of the proverbial cases of quite literally kicking the can down the road, right?
Yes, I think that's right. But certainly on the Obama watch, the economy has grown very slowly, an average of 2% a year, which makes it increasingly difficult for young people to get into the workforce and get the good jobs that they deserve.
Wow. Now, one of the things that you had addressed was education. Everybody talks about reforming education, and usually these reforms just cost more money. What do you think we should do to improve education in the United States? And we only have a minute.
Well, there's so many examples of, say, charter schools as they have in New York City with the Harlem Success Academies. These schools cost less, and they provide a better education. These students are in the top 1% of New York State students. So there's a lot we can do by allowing parents more choice of schools and allowing more charter schools to open up their doors to students.
Hear that, Montana? We're a no charter school state, so I hope someone's listening. Diana, thank you so much for your time. That was Diana Furchtgott-Roth. Her new book, Disinherited, How Washington is Betraying America's Young.
Makes a great graduation gift in both directions. Diana, thanks again.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Take care, man. All right, wow. Whew. Boy, that was a barn burner.
Wow.
So, I'm going to take my old self, I'm just going to limp out of the studio. No. So what's coming up on tomorrow's Fabulous
Well,
program?
I don't know. I have some plans, but we got to ask some people. There's this lawsuit going on over at the police department, sheriff's department, and hopefully maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Well, maybe we will, but there's all sorts of things going on around the world, and of course, I believe tomorrow's Open Phones. Don't forget, Catching the Big Ones is on from 8 to 9 at Paradise Falls, and we hope that you'll join that, and then talk back after that from 9 until 10. Have a great day, everybody, and don't get wet.